This drone flying over my property is spying on me.
Are you the main character in a movie?
No. In Canada, people do not own the airspace above their own property. If you're living in just some neighborhood and you see a drone flying over your house, they are most likely flying legally. You don't own that airspace over your house.
You're sitting in your backyard enjoying a quiet afternoon when you hear it, that buzzing. Like 1,000 tiny wasps overhead. You look up. There it is. A drone hovering, watching, spying? Reporting back to who exactly? If you've ever felt a chill crawl down your spine at the sight of a drone in the sky, you're not alone. In fact, one of the most outlandish misconceptions people in Canada and the US have is that these small RPAS are basically surveillance bots. Always watching, always recording, always violating someone's privacy. Spoiler alert, they're not. Not even close. In today's episode, we're busting the biggest drone myths around drones. And I said drones twice because I'm a professional. From high-flying Hollywood fantasies to the very real laws that actually keep them grounded. You're listening to a pair of certified drone pilots who have nothing better to do than sit here and rant about drones on a weekly basis. So if you've ever wondered what drones can do versus what people think they can do, stick around. It's about to get noisy. Welcome back to another episode of the Coastal Drone Podcast. I'm Ian, and this is my co-host, Finn. And in this episode, we're breaking down a bunch of common drone myths and misconceptions that people have around, guess what? Drones. Whether you're on the fence about getting a drone or have just picked one up yourself, maybe a new model like a shiny new Mavic 4 Pro or a Mini, like a Mini 3 Pro, Mini 4 Pro, there's a few things that you should probably know. And you might think that they're actually true, but they aren't. Believe it or not, a micro drone like the Mini 3 Pro is still bound to laws and regulations that you don't have to have the best of the best to capture stunning aerial images. Sorry, taking a breath. That was a lot of words. This is our follow-up episode to common mistakes drone pilots made a couple weeks back. And if you want to learn all about that, you can check it out. But anyway, let's get started on what we're talking about today. Yeah. Good morning, Finn.
Good morning, Ian. So we're going to start with some drone misconceptions. We're starting with misconceptions around the rules and regulations. Yeah, so one of the common misconceptions we see is that a micro drone can fly anywhere with no restrictions.
Yeah.
I've seen people fly it near airport, like at airports. I've seen people fly micro drones at airports.
I've flown micro drones at airports.
You've flown micro drones at airports.
Yeah.
Can a micro drone fly literally anywhere in Canada?
Literally everywhere? No. It can fly in about, if I was to give it a number, like 90% of Canada.
I'd say 98% of Canada, but yeah.
Yeah, and when we're talking about airspace here, first off, so we set the ground rules. So in this conversation, we're talking about where you can and can't fly. We got to remember that there's kind of two major approaches to this. You've got the drone, the regulations around the drone in the air, but you've also got regulations on the ground. So first we're talking about airspace here. So where can you fly a micro drone in Canada? Well, pretty much anywhere that's Class G or uncontrolled airspace. You can also fly a micro drone in controlled airspace. Now, controlled airspace has a letter code in Canada, so that could be A, B, C, D, or E, and then F, but there's different versions of F. So you have Class F restricted, which you cannot fly a micro drone in.
No aircraft can fly in Class F restricted.
No aircraft. And this is a good example right now. So we're in Vancouver. There's a wildfire going on in Squamish, British Columbia. That wildfire has a NOTAM or a notice to airmen surrounding it, which restricts the airspace in the immediate vicinity of that fire.
It's 5 nautical miles up to 5,000 feet.
Yeah. So it's a bubble that they've established. The default's 3,000 AGL.
Yes, but
in this case, it's
an extended.
And that's typical to happen because the fire climbs. Yes. And the flame, like there's some wildfires going on in Canada right now, like the flames are thousands of feet.
Like and this one is halfway up the Chief, so.
Yeah, the Chief is a couple thousand feet tall, so. So you cannot fly in, and I said a couple thousand feet flames. That's probably grossly exaggerating here, so I'm going to immediately correct myself on that one. A couple hundred for sure. Like if trees are candling, it could be a couple hundred feet from that. but it is pretty phenomenal to see a fully engaged fire going on. And the heat, just like the convective side of it, it's crazy dangerous to fly over top of a fire, period, in any aircraft.
Yeah. I mean, there were part of the airspace in the airport that Ian and I fly out of was closed last week because a barn caught fire.
That's right. Yeah.
But it's funny, they didn't actually issue the NOTAM until after the fire was out.
Yeah, they're a little slow to issue it.
Well,
I called it into tower because I ended up flying right over it with had some officers on board.
Yeah. I flew over it as well because it wasn't closed via NOTAM.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. Okay, so you can't fly microdrones in restricted airspace. As of April 1st, 2025, you cannot fly a microdrone at an advertised event unless you have a special flight operation certificate, which is a 30-day process to get paperwork in.
Minimum.
Yeah, to get 30 business days.
30 business days.
30
minimum.
calendar days. To get an application in, to get all your ducks in a row, you don't need to have a pilot certificate, which is kind of weird, to be honest. But you've got to do a bunch of paperwork. And how do they prove that you like the paper? We're still working. We've got to do an episode on this. There's a couple good episodes out there. I think Don Drones On did one a few weeks ago about this. So check that out. I think he's got the process in that. We'll do our own, of course. But there is things out there that you can check the resources on this, because it kind of left a lot of people high and dry that were using micro drones at advertised events because they were allowed to, because of the exemptions that this exhibited, but they were abusing it. And this is definitely a case of fool around and find out.
Yes.
So that's what happened. What else can't you do with a micro drone?
You can't fly dangerously or recklessly.
Yeah, so CARS 900.06 is the don't be an idiot rule. No person can allow a drone to become a hazard to any person or any aircraft. So it's a pretty broad rule. And because it's in the 900 decimal whatever section, it applies to all drone operations.
All drone operations,
yeah.
That's right.
Okay, let's move on from there.
Yes.
I think, you cannot be impaired, which also falls under the 900 rule.
Yeah, I would consider drunk flying to be
so
smart.
Cracking a beer, sitting on your back porch, flying your drone is illegal.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
So, common misconception. This drone flying over my property is spying on me.
Are you the main character in a movie?
No.
Are you an international man of mystery?
Not that you know of.
Are you now, or have you ever been a form of some sort of anti-government party?
If you say a specific trigger word, maybe you'll find out.
Yeah, horse, potato, goat. Yeah, so the reality is that most of us are pretty boring.
Yes.
Right? We're not that special. There's no reason for a drone to be following us or spying on us. Unless you're doing something that is worthy of spying, and then that's a whole different story.
Yes.
But there have been circumstances where, so the reality is every drone that's out there has a wide angle camera, right? And it's good I've got these out in here. It's not just for decoration. The Mini only has a wide angle camera. So it's roughly the equivalent of a 24 millimeter lens, which is a wide angle camera. It's really basically the same as your standard lens on what 99% of phones these days. If you're 100 feet away from someone, are you going to get like a perfect identifiable photo of them?
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. Especially if you're above them and they're wearing a hat or something like that. So you got to get really close to be like really framing up your target or subject in the video.
Yeah, these are not portrait cameras.
No. So the Mavic 3 and the Mavic 4 both have telephoto lenses. They can shoot at roughly 166 or they call it a 7x or a 6x telephoto zoom lens. Yeah, you're starting to get into the ability of like getting a pretty identifiable photo from a distance. But even then, if the drone's not pointing at you, it can't see you.
No.
So like it's a very, very narrow field of view. It's on the longest, it's a 15-degree field of view. So like 200 feet away, I'm like on your forehead, right? It's a very narrow field of view.
That's right.
And we've got sample footage. You can kind of see the comparison of these. But I don't really, we've had phone calls over the years of the unfortunate situation where someone's got a drone flying near their house. and it may be a legitimate thing, like they're doing real estate and it's an adjacent property. And most real estate drone photographers try to avoid capturing their neighbors' yards and everything else like that because it's not like they're not prepared for the real estate shoot, so it's going to look ugly probably, and not sell the house. Like they don't really want you to see. If your neighbor's a hoarder, they're not gonna show that in your real estate photos, and that's going to be on you to see when you come in person. And then also it's just confusing because it's not ideal.
Yeah, you're trying to sell this house, not a generic house.
Yeah, and whenever I did it, I would either blur out the surrounding properties or desaturate it or fade it out into like a vignette so it's darker. Or you do the property line
star wipe.
Yeah. just something to not call attention to it because it's not what I'm selling.
Yeah. So most of the time that drone is not spying on you.
Yeah.
But Ian, another common misconception. Well, I own the airspace over my private property.
Yeah, it's a good segue.
And if I see a drone, I can use force to remove that drone from the air because this airspace is my private property.
Yeah, so this actually goes two ways. You've got, can you fly over private property? So let's get that out of the way first. Yes.
Yes. People in Canada, people do not own the airspace above their own property.
That's right. There's no vertical air rights.
No.
Unless the minister has delegated control of that airspace.
Yeah. But unless you're a prison, the minister is not delegating that airspace to you.
And so this conversation is evolving over the years. Like even in the last year and a half, we've talked about this on the podcast. There are now drone restricted airspaces, the CYRs, and we should go back to the mini thing. Those also apply. They're not just Class F CYRs. They're drone RPAS.
Yeah, there's RPAS specific restricted airspace. Minis can't fly in those as well. But if you're living in just some neighborhood and you see a drone flying over your house, they are most likely flying legally. You don't own that airspace over your house.
Yeah, and so there's a couple different things. First off, frame of reference to where the drone is to you, right? It may look like it's over top of you. At 400 feet, it could be 100 meters away from you, right? The other thing is, and you alluded to it, don't shoot the drone down.
No.
You cannot interfere with an aircraft that's already in the air.
No. In Canada, drones are classified as aircraft the same way that a helicopter or an airplane were.
And in the USA as well.
So it would be as you were attacking like a passenger jet.
Yeah.
Which is considered a federal offense in both Canada and the U.S.
It's generally frowned upon to shoot at airplanes.
Yes.
So, yes.
Yes.
There are federal consequences to that.
Yes.
And they're going to vary country to country, but it's generally frowned upon, and it's a felony in the States, and I'm not sure what the Canadian equivalent of that's a capital crime or what the Canadian equivalent of a felony is.
I don't know, but I'm not going to try and find out for
it's
myself.
Real bad.
Yes.
So don't mess with it because it's not only the drone. You can't discharge a firearm into the air.
No.
Period. Like you are responsible for your projectile no matter where it goes. And I have a firearms license, and it's if you can't guarantee that round isn't going into a berm or something safe or into an animal. I don't hunt, but if I did, like you're responsible for where it goes. So if you shoot straight up in the air, it's coming down somewhere else.
Yes. Yes.
Because you're going to miss. The drones aren't that easy to hit.
No. Look how big this thing is.
It's not like a clay pigeon. It dodges.
Yeah. So one thing, so this is kind of a break. So one of the things that we see often on our YouTube channel, especially when we talk about the regulations, is there's always a goober. Hello, goober. I know you're watching. Who says,
"Did you just insult our audience?"
I insulted a specific style of commenter.
Okay.
Which I would not actually consider members of our audience.
Okay.
These people say, I'm just flying wherever. No one's going to catch me. There's no consequences. I'm just going to do whatever I want. Just get out and fly. Who cares about the regulations?
Yeah.
So this is a common misconception that people have that the rules don't apply to them. In aviation we call this the hazardous attitude of invulnerability.
Yeah. That
the rules don't apply to this person. And it bugs me every single time I see some of these comments because it's wrong. Like they're incorrect. there are consequences for flying your drone in these unlawful ways.
I'm bringing up the non-corporate offenders list right now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to search by RPass.
Yeah.
And see when the last fine was assessed. And I'll just read it off real quick here. I'm just going to do one.
Okay.
And this is the most recent one. So it was published March of this year. And it was there were 2 different dates of violation. So it was in December 2023 and then January 2024. There were 5 counts and they violated 5 different laws. The total penalty was $3,060.
That's not nothing. That's
No.
that's
So you-
80% of the price of the Mavic 4 over there.
And this is unprepped. I'm just going to read the description of offense real quick here. A person operated a remotely piloted aircraft in controlled airspace. First count. A person also operated a remotely piloted RPass system when that person was not the holder of a pilot certificate in advanced operations. So they probably only had a basic or nothing at all. And at a special aviation event or at an advertised event without a special flight operations certificate. A person operated a RPass without a registration number clearly visible on the remotely piloted aircraft. So no C number. Even just writing it in Sharpie is perfectly fine. And a person also failed to produce a technical record for inspection in accordance with the terms of the demand made by Mr. So they didn't have their logs.
Yeah.
These are all things we've talked about on the podcast.
And the log one is funny because I can just
Open your account.
Well, yeah, when I see the log, I'm just like, oh, that inspector was trying to nail them for everything.
Well, that was was playing dirty because it's actually a Cars 100 violation.
They're only asking for logs if they think that they can nail you on the logs.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so rules don't apply to me. I'm going to get away with it.
Not necessarily. You're not.
Ipso facto or QED or whatever you want to say.
A couple of years ago, some of the biggest fines in Parks Canada history were levied at a drone pilot for flying in the park.
And they were multiple 4-figure, like $10,000 to $15,000.
I think when all the fines were tallied up, it was over 20,000 Canadian.
Oof.
So $4 US.
How do you say oof in français?
If. No, that's egg.
Look around, oof. Okay. So that's okay. So look, who is authorized to enforce? Because this is the other side of it. So someone comes in with the invulnerability attitude, and yes, okay, these things are safe. Like for the most part, drones are a safe aircraft to operate, and as long as you operate them with a modicum of critical thinking and decision making, the chances of coming into contact with another aircraft are pretty negligible, but it's not a zero chance.
Yes.
You get caught doing something, or you choose to do something, and the consequences come to you. Who has the ability to enforce that?
So,
because it's not just Transport Canada. You
always have to be able to provide your pilot's license to a peace officer. And that's not just for drone pilots. That's for...
It's a source of identification.
Yeah. So if you are flying your aircraft and a peace officer, so a police officer, like a police officer...
a delegate of the ministry.
Or a delegate of the ministry approaches you and asks for your pilot certificate, you must provide it to them.
Yeah. General public, no.
General public, no. You don't have to do that. Now... And you can answer this question because I'm not 100% sure. If a peace officer, like a police officer or RCMP, suspects that you're flying in an unlawful way, do they have authority to enforce that?
RCMP are being educated to the point that they can, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so either way,
here's the other reason. So, and it'd be great to actually get a member of law enforcement on for this at some point. I don't know if we could or not, but the reality is a lot of municipal regional police departments are running drone divisions now. So they are well versed in the drone laws, whether or not they are able to go to, I guess it's Crown to get charges. This is so far out of my scope.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, as a somewhat informed idiot, it's bad to do anything illegal in front of a police officer.
Yeah.
And whether or not they can get you on it, because Here's an example. I'm pretty sure parks can enforce. Well, they can definitely enforce drunk driving tickets, speeding tickets, right? Motor Vehicle Act stuff. They have the delegated authority for that.
Well, even if the police officer couldn't enforce, they could definitely testify on behalf of the Crown in any legal
Oh,
proceedings.
yeah, because now they're qualified as a witness.
Because they're qualified as a witness. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you may not get away with it right then and there, or the opposite of that. You may get away with it right then and there, but the storm is coming.
Look, don't break the cars, unless a common misconception: the cars apply indoors.
Yes. So this is always a question I have to ask when I get a call or a complaint about, oh, they were doing this or that or this, and I'm like, well, where was it? And then it's like, oh, well, it's inside this building. And I'm like, well, unfortunately,
the cars don't apply indoors.
Yeah. So now it comes down to the building owner and their liability and whether or not that person was trespassing.
Yes.
So,
but if you're inside and you have permission to be there and they know what you're doing, you can kind of do whatever you want.
Basically,
from a car's perspective, because the cars don't apply indoors.
It's a personal liability issue at that point.
Yeah. Another misconception, and this is one that we get calls about this at least once a week.
Too many, and I don't know how to make a full episode about this.
No, and it's people's frustration that and this happens so many times. People purchase a drone, they walk down to their local scenic area, and there's a big sign that says no drones, and then they call and say, "Can I not fly it in a municipal park?"
Yeah. Or the fact that there's no drone signs out there everywhere
Yes.
that should have been taken down years ago.
And the answer is, you cannot, if a municipality has a bylaw that prohibits drone flights, you cannot take off or land inside the park boundaries.
Yeah. That's a trespass issue.
That's a trespass issue.
Yeah. So City of Calgary actually has pretty good drone laws for their parks. And I'm paraphrasing, and it's been a while since I've looked at them.
But they have like specific drone areas, right?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Is in some of the parks you can fly micro drones. They won't allow full-size drones, but they will allow micro drones. And it's partly to do with the fact that it's also pretty much everywhere is Class C for Calgary City.
Yes.
So they're basically saying, well, transport says you can't fly unless you have an advanced, but the law was probably written somewhere between 2018, 2019, so the advance was still a bit nebulous to the city at the time. But they do allow, you can fly a micro drone in certain areas from within the park boundaries, as long as it's not, there's a couple wildlife preservation areas that you cannot at all. And that makes total sense.
Yes.
So they've and of course there's going to be a notwithstanding clause or something like that says, notwithstanding if you have the right to enjoy the park.
Yeah,
right?
or if you fly like a
doofus.
A doofus. Yeah.
Yeah, so don't tick off everyone else around you by being super obnoxious. Like, don't go ripping with a micro that's screaming at 50,000 RPM.
Yes. But in many places, you cannot take off or land inside municipal parks without some sort of permission.
Yeah. So basically what I'm saying is be more like Calgary, everyone else that's listening that happens to be in city planning.
Yeah, because because people are going to fly in your parks. Just, we were talking about people getting busted for breaking regulations before, but it is going to happen.
Yeah. Well, we need...
And if you give people a specific, or if you give people an area where it's permissible, that will just mean that people are no longer flying it illegally in a clandestine manner, and maybe you have a bylaw officer or park warden who's then able to educate and oversee that area.
Yeah.
So it just makes sense to have something like that.
Well, and so in the States there's FRIAs, which are not necessarily to do with the ground. They're more an airspace thing.
That's right.
It's the remote ID exemption area, FRIA, and it's more to do with just having an airspace where people that can have like kind of like a model, a Mac field type environment.
That's right. This video is brought to you by us, Coastal Drone. Whether you're looking to get your advanced pilot certificate, basic pilot certificate, or FAA Part 107, we've got all of the courses available on our website, coastaldrone.co. Whether you're an individual or a group looking for a group discount to train multiple pilots, please visit us on our website. Again, that's coastaldrone.co. Save some time, save some money, and we'll see you there. I was careful with my language before when I said you cannot take off or land inside the park. Now, the reason I'm careful with that language is because that's technically the only jurisdiction that the park has. Now, this leads to the obvious conclusion, then can I take off outside the park and then overfly
We
the
get
park?
that call all the time.
We get that call all the time. Nav Canada's position is that they request that you respect.
Please don't.
Please
Would be
don't.
the best quote.
Like, please don't.
yeah.
Like, I read somewhere in one of their publications that even if the bylaw is technically an overreach and this or something like this, they ask that you do respect these types of bylaws, just out of being a good neighbor and not getting yourself into.
The practical side of it is what the intent of that is to eliminate the noise and distraction and everything of a drone flying through a park.
Yeah.
And so the challenge there is, how do you, like, it's kind of like snowboarders on mountains were back in the 80s. Was it the 80s?
Oh, how they go much faster than everybody else.
Yeah, and it was, I remember watching a documentary about how deadly snowboarders were on the mountain. Now, it is not the same argument. The drone is a camera that flies. You absolutely take a camera to a park, but you can't take a camera that flies at this point because of the inherent risks. If you are an unscrupulous drone pilot and you crash it into a tree, then it sets off a wildfire, bad. If you harass wildlife, bad. If you harass other people that are enjoying the park, bad. There's a lot more to it, and the barrier to entry to being a jerk is lower than it was with being a snowboarder on a mountaintop.
Well, and the thing I always think about with my, with my local parks, if I flew a drone in my local park, the likelihood that thing gets smoked by a frisbee is like pretty high.
Okay, you and I are envisioning different parks here, I think. I'm talking about like middle of nowhere mountainous terrain.
Right. I'm thinking of municipal parks where especially in my neighborhood, this thing's getting smoked by a frisbee.
Well, it's going to get smoked by a cane or something else as well because it's going to annoy someone. Like
Exactly.
Municipal parks, we need to, as a drone community, step up and like all these different drone apps that are out there. There needs to be a database or an index of drone-friendly places to fly. That's not some, like, it needs to be fully open source, not owned by one entity. So either it's like something that's on OpenStreetMaps or something like that it's crowdsourced and community developed, that it's, hey, I've done everything I possibly can to look for bylaws or some sort of restriction that prevents it from happening, because it has to be a living thing, first off, because the laws do change on a regular basis, and it has to be something that is crowdsourced and verifiable. So
yeah,
it's something that I've thought a lot about. I don't know how to do it.
Yes. I think that's enough on this topic before we say something legally that's going to get us in trouble.
Yeah. Well, like I said, these are all opinions,
Yes.
and there's just the reality of the frustration that it is as being a community member of the drone community. So,
Next misconception: you can fly FPV without a VO.
only if it's a sub 250 gram.
If it's a sub 250, you can fly FPV without a VO.
Yeah.
If you're flying something like an Avata, which is above 250 grams, you need a visual observer.
Yeah. So pretty much most FPV, you have to have a visual observer with you. What is a visual observer's job? Well, it's to stand there and watch the airspace surrounding your drone and keep a general look on the drone. The reality is most FPV pilots are not, well, first off, they can't fly beyond line of sight. So there's that. But also, you're flying in and around structures or in and around buildings. So there's kind of that nebulous, you're into what's called sheltered airspace.
Which will become more codified in November.
Yeah, and that's just it. It doesn't exist right now in a full definition. But if you have an advanced pilot certificate and you have, there might be a declaration process for the drone.
It's 30 meters from a bystander as well.
Yeah, so you can't fly close to bystanders. You'll have a little bit more flexibility in the line of sight aspect of it, but you should still have a visual observer for that.
Yes. Next misconception, and this one comes up on the flight review from time to time. If you're flying near a structure, you still have to stay below 400 feet AGL.
Or you can fly 400 feet above that building. That's another one I get a lot
Yes.
of.
Yeah, so in and around a building, in and around a structure, you can fly 100 feet above that structure as long as you are within 200 feet horizontally from the structure.
And this is for Canada.
This is for Canada.
Yeah.
All right, so that's some regulatory misconceptions. Let's talk about gear misconceptions.
Everyone's gone now, 37 minutes in.
This is Ian's favorite, gear acquisition syndrome.
Oh, my goodness.
A misconception. You always need the best drone to get started. You have to buy the Mavic 4 Pro if you want to get started in the drone industry now.
I'm pretty sure I've written a few videos about this on our YouTube channel.
I'm pretty sure.
And everyone calls me wrong or an anti-shill or inexperienced or have no grounds for basis.
Or a hypocrite.
Yeah. So when I got into photography, really suffered from gear obsession and pined to get myself like a 1DX at the time or something like that, like spend more to get more, right? I'll be a better photographer if I buy L series glass. I'll be a better photographer if I have full frame, right? All these different things. If you don't just get out and shoot with the tools that you already have, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah. You can buy the nicest camera in the world and then still use it to take a shot that's not framed very well.
Yeah. Yeah, you can screw up on the most expensive gear, you can still be out of focus.
Yes.
So
on the
I literally shot something yesterday with the Mavic 4 Pro, and I was doing a shot and I looked down and I was like, oh, it's a manual focus. It might be short for focused. Oops.
You can buy the nicest gear in the world and still forget to change the settings so that it's in RAW.
Yeah.
And accidentally shoot a JPEG and then you can't do anything with it.
Yeah. So yes, there is a reason to upgrade. And this I've got the Air 3S video, which I didn't think was a great value proposition, and I stood by that. We didn't buy one. I had no reason to buy it, and that was the thesis of that video. The Mavic 4 Pro, it was more complex than that. It wasn't that it's not a good value proposition. Now, I was doing could you call it an initial impressions video? On the launch day timing of it was really what my rant on that one was more about, and the fact that it's so expensive. And I summed it up with the fact that I hate the idea that this thing's so expensive because I'm in a position where I have to buy it to stay relevant in this industry. And here we are borrowing one right now, but after borrowing it for a week, we're going to buy it. There's technical merit, but the key point of this conversation is I didn't own the Mavic 3 Pro Cine.
Yeah, and like part of the reason why we were, or part of your rant was that the technical aspects of this that make it so expensive are marginal upgrades.
Yes. So a big thing that, and we've got a review video coming. You're literally hearing me thought process it, and then we're going to go back and I'm going to rewrite it based on this. But one of the big things with the Mavic 4 Pro is the Cine Creator Combo, the most expensive one. You cannot buy right now a combo that has the RC Pro 2 smart controller with the Fly More kit. It's a $600 US bump to go from the RC2, which is the normal smart controller with the Fly More combo, up to the Creator combo. That $600 bump is the same price as the controller, but also you get a 512 gig SSD on board. And also it unlocks the all-eye codec, so the interframe codec, which is 1.3 gigabit versus the like 200-ish gigabit or 200-ish megabit that the SD card. So there's more than $1,000 value in doing that. But that value is only to a 1% of drone pilots. It is such a niche case that I'm going to do a video with a blind comparison, and it's going to be rough on YouTube, so I'm probably going to do like a Vimeo download or something that you can get the full MP4, but it'll be a blind comparison of all-eye versus a long GOP video codec. And I guarantee you,
No one's going to tell the difference.
You're not going to be able to see the difference unless it's in a very specific shooting scenario, and only if I punch in like 300% on the video.
Yeah.
So it's diminishing returns. right?
Yes.
We're into that period. So the big thing is the reason I didn't buy the Mavic Pro 3, I'm an S person, right? So Apple has the S. Well, they don't anymore. But I bought the iPhone 6S, then I would wait. I got the 11, I'd wait, get the 13, wait, get the 15, and then I'll wait, and I'll probably get the 17. I skip a generation on most technology because there's just not enough to keep like that constant like dopamine injection that you're trying to get from new gear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what gear acquisition syndrome is dopamine from acquisition.
And not just the camera. Do you need a high-end computer to edit?
These days, no.
No.
We tried to edit on. You need a lot of RAM. That's definitely still a thing. And one of the crappy things about Apple is you have to buy the RAM at purchase. So like the last few MacBooks I've bought have been 32 gigs, which seems like a lot, but it's not these days if you want to edit. But you don't need a crazy fast processor. You don't need to spend a ton of money if you're buying a PC, a Windows PC these days. You can get away with quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Another common misconception, and we've talked about this before, but DJI being your only option these days.
Well, it's not a misconception; it's a fact.
Yeah.
No, I'm not a DJI shill.
There are other brands available. They are harder to get.
There are other brands. We talked about the alternatives in an episode. Autel is probably one of the closest consumer option competitors. Skydio has left the consumer market completely. They may come back one day. Probably not. Their last version was the Skydio 2, which was actually a pretty good drone at the time. But this was 2018. Mm-hmm. That's a long time ago now. Or 19.
Yes.
But and it was about the same as the Air 2 in terms of camera quality. But it was quite a bit more. So you got in the notes here, the Hover Air X1. Its value proposition compared to the Neo. I wrote a video about this. I never got to camera, but
yeah, because it was a 45-minute video about the Hover X1.
Yeah, it was like 3,000 words about how terrible the X1 was.
You know that meme of the guy from It's Always Sunny in front of the board with like all the
Charlie Day?
Yeah. That was what that video was going to be, but about the Hover X1.
Yeah, no, it was off the rails. And that was like 3 Red Bulls and the kids were already in bed and I just got on the keyboard and started typing. And I can't remember the summary of it because it was so like it's just this wall of text in my head right now. But it didn't make sense because it basically was double the price of what the Neo does. And it couldn't do this is what it was. The Neo's 3 different drones in one. So it's actually a really good value for what it does. It's an FPV drone that flies manually. It's a controllerless drone, and it's a GPS style drone like a Mavic. It's just not very good at any of them. It is pretty mediocre, but it's a $200 mediocre drone instead of a $600 drone that doesn't do any of that stuff.
That you can fly from your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a Kickstarter. And no offense, I want to buy something that I can buy at a store, and I'm pretty sure you can get the Hover Air at retailers right now. I've seen them locally, but it's just different. It's a different market.
Some other things. This one comes up from time to time. DJI Flycare equals brand new drone for you, no matter what.
Well, it means new to you.
Yeah,
it's definitely new to you,
yes.
But it's not new to everyone else.
No,
it's probably a refurb,
and they're not going to cover everything.
No, I haven't had to use it personally. I've bought it several times,
and it's not 100% free anymore because there's a deductible now as well.
Yeah, so on this guy, we talked about it when we purchased it, and kind of decided not to because it was $500 US. $500 US for 2 years.
And
yes.
with
Okay, but this is a $3,500 US drone.
Yes.
But then there is a deductible. I don't remember what it is. I think it's $50 to $100.
Okay, yeah.
So, but the Avatas were the first that really started like pumping the deductible, and this is partly because the insurance is covering dumb pilot mistakes.
Yes.
Right?
Speaking of the Avata, common misconception: the Avata series are not real drones, or not real FPV drones.
What do you mean?
They're not like, because a real FPV drone, you like build it with your hand and you like make it yourself in a lab.
Yeah, they're real FPV drones.
Yeah,
They have full manual. They have some limitations because of the fact they're Cinewhoops.
Yes.
They have washout and tumbling issues, but they're, if you fly them within their capability and know that, like, every drone has its limitations.
Yeah.
And like, if you custom build something, you're going to spend a lot of time tuning. And honestly, the tuning is pretty good in the Avatas. The big difference in the differentiation there is the Avata, I can flip a switch and it goes into full GPS hover with return to home capability without me having to like fire up iFlight and program it and build a complete stack.
Mm-hmm.
So
some misconceptions about pilot skill. Flying a drone is easy. Anyone can do it.
yes.
Yes, but
It's like guitar. You can strum a string.
Being good enough to get cinematic shots or pleasing shots or stuff that people will actually want to watch or use.
Well, that's two different things. You've got flying a drone and operating an aerial camera platform.
Yeah, so this is the misconception, is that people conflate these two things.
Yeah. So I'm not the world's greatest drone pilot, not even close. I've done this like full time 5 years now, 3 years, 5 years. It is a perishable skill. That's probably the biggest thing, is if you don't get out and practice and fly smoothly and think about it, then you will not progress, no matter what the platform is that you're flying.
You'll see in a future video, but I took out this the Mavic 4, and it was the first time that I was doing like a shoot, like a shoot in a very long time. Yeah. And I was quite ginger with the controls, let's say.
Humbled
by the controls. But we'll talk about that on a future video.
Yeah, do a debrief.
Yes.
But yeah, it's, if you don't get out there and fly, you're not going to progress. There's simulators, so you don't have to worry about crashing. The drones will hover. They're the best things at hovering on their own these days. But yeah, there's a lot of skills that need to be polished.
Yes. Another misconception: you can just leave the drone on auto all the time for everything.
Well, when DJI launches a new drone and doesn't deliver ND filters with it, then you kind of have to leave it on auto.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you want to learn what those little buttons and dots and dials and stuff mean on the bottom right corner of your screen. If you don't understand the relationship between aperture and ISO and shutter speed, we have podcasts about that. Like episode 2 of our 2.0 series is me deep diving into the exposure triangle, and it's it's not just the Illuminati, it's also everything that's important about cameras, right, from film all the way to digital.
Yes.
But yeah, it is something that you're going to, that's the 10%. That's the entropy of perfection, is where you're going to get it, is from learning how to master it, manual exposure.
Mm-hmm. Let's do one more. I think we've got time for one more.
Okay.
So this is sometimes when people are looking at starting their own drone business. A misconception they sometimes have is that technical skills alone will be able to land them jobs without having to like do a whole lot of legwork. Unfortunately, maybe fortunately, communication, punctuality, professionalism, these soft skills, these skills not necessarily related only to drone flying,
they're disappearing.
And which means that these skills will allow you to...
Yeah, so if you have an entrepreneurial mindset,
yes,
if you have the willingness to put yourself in a position of discomfort and get out there and differentiate, and in this case, differentiate means picking up the phone, calling people, telling them, hey, I've got a solution for your problem, or listening to them and asking questions, or just getting to know people before you even get into the sales pitch. Just know what's going on around you. Identify that solution that you can provide, that you have the skill set to do. That matters more than your ability to fly the drone. Because These drones can be anything you want them to be. They can be a camera platform. They can be a drone delivery platform. They can be a sensor payload. They can be agriculture spray. They can be life-saving organ delivery. There's so many different things that these things can do before we get into like bigger stuff. Just what they're doing right now. Every day I'm finding out about something new that a drone has been used to do with that. Job as the drone business provider is to figure out what your market needs the most and whether or not the drone is appropriate to that. Not, I'm a drone pilot, tell everyone how great of a drone pilot I am, and let them figure out what you can do for them.
Yeah, I can thread a needle with a drone, no problem. Well,
yeah, the sewing convention's not going to call.
No.
Grandma's quilts are not going to be strung up on your drone.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But the reality of it is that, and in 2020, I wanted to just do drone real estate as a side hustle, right? And I just wanted to do the drone side. I wanted nothing to do with the ground side, even though I'm perfectly competent and able to do that. I just my sense of perfection and everything else would not make it inefficient. I wanted to just be there, fly the drone, and then sell it to another photographer and do that. I was driving my business growth based on what I wanted to do, not what the market wanted. Every phone call, every customer I dealt with, well, can you do this, and this? Can you do floor plans? Can you do 3D walkthroughs? Can you do ground-based gimbal video? Yes, but it's going to cost more, or I'm going to have to buy more gear. I'm going to have to be more diverse. And if I wanted to continue down that path, that's what I would have to do. I'd have to pivot. And my market was telling me what they wanted. I wasn't able to tell my market what I wanted from it. And that's the reality with any business, right? If you want to make deep fried cabbage and only make deep fried cabbage at a food truck, maybe you'll find your market for it. But the reality is probably everyone else just wants hot dogs. So...
Speaking of lunch, I think it's time we get out of here.
Well, and like I said, if there's any other drone myths you want to prompt and start a 45-minute rant and that you have to back away like Homer into the grass, then now's the time to do it. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us live and or watching us on a Sunday in the near future from today on our Coastal Drone Weekly podcast. If you found this entertaining, please give us a thumbs up and hit that like button. And if you want to see more of it, hit that subscribe button. If you hated it, hit the down button. It still works too. We like your feedback. But if you hate it, please tell us why in the comments, because I need more comments, good or bad.
I like the comments.
I don't always. I had one that was kind of hurtful the other day, and it kind of struck deep. So
I think I know which one you're talking about. Oh, because you sent it to me.
Yeah, and my only response was just thanks for the support.
No, and then you also did a
thumbs up or a heart
heart.
emoji. Yeah. But thanks again, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you again next time on the Coastal Drone Podcast.
See ya.